Who even knows at this point? Right, what do I need? I don't know if that's the new one. I don't know how I always manage to misplace such a thing. That's not the right one. That is not the right one. I'm gonna go get another one. Okay, hi guys, Claudia Boleyn here. So, don't worry, this is not becoming a makeup tutorial channel. It's just that I need to go out in like half an hour. Grandma and Granddad are gonna come pick me up. And I wanted to make a video briefly, and forgive me just like staring into the mirror at my tired face. I did not sleep last night, it was horrible. But I wanted to make like a short video, and something I realised doing the last video is that I felt so much more comfortable talking when I was doing something at the same time. So that's why I'm doing it. It's not a tutorial. I'm sorry if it's weird for me to be sitting here doing my makeup, but it really soothes me. I didn't really realise how soothing it was. It's really relaxing. So I'm going to be doing that now, but I've just got to track down my under eye concealer. I'll be back in a minute. I found it. What a miracle. It was under all my crochet stuff. I taught myself crocheting like last week. I get these like impulsive things and I just decide to do it, and I've taught myself how to crochet. So there's loads of crochet stuff around at the moment. I'm not good at it, I've just taught myself it. But yeah, so actually I kind of wanted you guys' advice, if that's alright. So I was watching a documentary yesterday, and it was by Christine McGuinness, and it was called Unmasking My Autism. So I believe she was diagnosed with autism when she was 33 years old. And for a long time on this channel, I have had people suggesting to me that I could be autistic. Now, I am not super educated on autism and how it presents in women and girls. But I've had this for a really long time, and I keep an open mind. Obviously, I've got an ADHD diagnosis, which does seem to fit. Where is everything? Why is nothing I need ever here when I need it? Okay, so I was watching the documentary, and I kind of, in a big way, related to a lot of what was being said. But I'm also aware that I have a lot of diagnoses. Ow, why does that always hurt? That always hurts. I have a lot of diagnoses or diagnoses, and I don't know. It seems to fit with me. So I guess I wanted to just talk about the bits I related to, and I know I have a load of you guys watching who are also autistic, and I already find a lot of like solace in listening to you guys and talking to you guys because of the ADHD diagnosis. So there's a lot of things in common anyway. But I just wanted to like talk about a couple of things that I saw on the programme, and like please just tell me, like if this is complete rubbish, just tell me, because I don't know. I honestly don't know. But obviously I received a diagnosis of BPD, borderline personality disorder, which is now emotional intensity disorder, I believe it's called. And that was after I had trigger warning. I had OD'd and was at the hospital. So I had a pattern of self-harm, eating disorders, suicidal ideation and thoughts, and I do think I fit some aspects of BPD. But other aspects I don't. So I suppose what I'm asking is, could it be that I have BPD and autism? Could I be autistic and have BPD at the same time? Which probably sounds like a really silly question, because obviously you can. But as in me, like, could I? I don't know. It's also more complicated because I have a trauma history. So a lot of the stuff that I have, it's very hard to figure out if it's trauma related, like complex PTSD, if it's because of like abuse, etc. Is it that? Or is it something like, is it autism? And it's just hard to kind of distinguish. I don't know if anyone else, if you're autistic and you've also been through trauma and abuse, you've been abused, etc., is that hard to kind of pick apart and figure out? Because I sometimes put down a lot of this stuff to trauma, which it could be, but then there's other things too. So a few things that Christine talked about. I wrote a little list. Let me get this on my screen. I'll do a proper video on this, but I'm obviously going out in a minute, so I just kind of wanted to put these thoughts down and ramble a bit. There are obviously some things which would fit. So obviously, as you know, if you know me on this channel, let me just find my eyebrow pencil. I get very, very obsessed with things. Like, extremely obsessed with things. And I don't just mean in a normal sense. I mean, when I was growing up, I would latch onto a thing and it would be my whole life. Now, in some ways, that's hard to unpack because some of that was because of trauma. I know that when I was a kid, I know that when I was younger, I totally latched onto something and I kind of lived through it and it became everything to me. It was like the real world wasn't real and the thing that I was obsessed with was the real thing instead. And I know, the thing is, it's complicated because is that trauma though? Is that because of trauma? I do get intense obsessions. I mean, you probably already know the intense obsession I have with Anne Boleyn. I will just reread about her life and her story over and over and the Tudor period, and that's been for a number of years. Doctor Who has been like a fixation of mine for a really, really long time. And when I was growing up, it was just everything. Like, I would cover my school planner in it. I would watch it repetitively over and over again to the extent that I could quote the episodes. Like, I'd buy all these books, like fact books about the episodes and everything. I just like loved it so much. And then I did the same with Merlin as well. So I was so obsessed with Merlin that it felt like they were obsessions. They weren't just things that I liked, they were pure obsessions. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, I used to collect screen grabs of like Merlin scenes I liked and I'd do art of them, and I still do that and I still cycle back to those obsessions. It's like I collect obsessions and stuff. And I obviously, I mean, I kind of over the years, I know it's not completely normal. I mean, what is normal anyway? But, you know, it's not quite the same as how other people seem to experience things. You know, it's like it is it's a special interest. And we've known that for a while in my family and friends, that I get these intense interests, but it was never really thought of as potentially being autism. It was just one of my weirdnesses. I get obsessed with a thing, and then once I'm obsessed with a thing, like, I'm obsessed with a thing. And it's something that, if I could, I would talk about all the time, and it's all I want to think about, to the exclusion of everything else. But then I don't know if that's a trauma thing, because also when things were so bad in my life mentally, or, you know, when you can't escape certain things and you're trapped, your mind also can latch onto a thing, and that will become your reality, so you don't have to live in your own life, in your own bubble anymore. You become obsessed with a thing and it's like your safety net. I do remember Doctor Who being that for me, and I do go back to Doctor Who all the time. Like, you know, I do sometimes say that Doctor Who saved my life, which is true. That's a weird thing to say, but it's really true. But I do also, I've had eating disorders over the years, and not with the intention of losing weight. It's always been a control thing. But again, is that trauma? Is that just because of trauma? Because I couldn't control my environment and what was going on, and it didn't feel like there was a way out or a way for things to change. So was it because it was like I was really scared of not being in control of something, and it felt like one thing I could be in control of? But it also did help me. Like, I do have ritualistic thinking. Like, sometimes it's like OCD-ish kind of things. I feel safer when I have like a ritual that I do, because I don't like things that are unexpected. If friends want to do something and I don't have time in advance, I just get so upset and stressed about it, and I kind of like get really, really upset and nervous about letting them down and nervous about the whole situation. Like, I can't go somewhere and not know. Christine said this and I'm the same. I can't go somewhere and not know when I'm coming back. Like, I have to know when I'm coming back, how I'm coming back, what that would look like. Like, I can't do things impulsively. Obviously my issues with food are pretty bad, but it's hard to, I mean, I've definitely had eating disorders over the years, but is that trauma? Is it BPD? Is it anxiety? Is it OCD stuff? Like, it's so hard to unpack because of the trauma stuff, and it makes me feel angry. Like, I don't know. Of course, having trauma makes you feel angry and nobody wants it, but in some ways I feel so angry because I feel like it's clouded everything, because I feel like it's just this extra thing that I've had to get through or figure out, and I'm only just figuring out. And it's like, if there was something under that as well, then how much more complicated it's become. But yeah, I really get so nervous. I get so anxious about what's going to happen and what the plan is. Like when I was at school, I used to get panic attacks. Like when we had a fire drill, because it would be unexpected, I used to actually have like a freak out. Like I would not, and I'd be so nervous about people realising that I would just start crying and like in a toilet somewhere. I would hide in the toilets. Like I became like psychotic when I was at school because of the stress. And something Christine McGuinness said was that it often shows when you go to secondary school, because things are less rigid and you have to take more charge of your own schedule. And I remember being unable to deal with that. Like going from this class to this class, no time between things. I would become overwhelmed. I'd get home from school crying, or I'd sleep the whole evening. Even though I enjoyed my junior school, at school, I used to cry on the way to school every morning. I used to cry in the car. I used to cry in the car and say I was feeling sick. I couldn't do it. I felt like I was going to be sick. I used to cry every morning. I was fine when I was there though. But then when I got to secondary school, I would do the same thing. So I'd cry in the morning. Sometimes when I got overwhelmed, I'd just hide in the toilets. And I kind of got caught for skiving, and I was so ashamed at that point of admitting I wasn't at that point comfortable with my mental health stuff. Like I felt really like I couldn't explain it. And so I went along with the idea that, yeah, sure, I was just skiving. Sure. But that wasn't the case. You know, I love my lessons and I wouldn't have done that. I was a good kid. I was just scared. I couldn't cope. And I didn't want them to know that. So that was difficult. That was really difficult. Like I was not coping. I was locking myself in toilets, crying, not turning up, trying to ring to go home, going to the medical room. Like I was so overwhelmed. And something that Christine said was about, what's the time? I need to check. Okay, we're all right. Sensory overload. So a thing for me that I struggle with is this is going to sound ridiculous, but this is something that's always been a thing in my family that I've always kind of had. I have a really strong sense of smell, like to the extent that I can't cope if I smell a bad smell. Like I physically feel nauseous, like I will get upset sometimes. Like some smells affect me so much, and I'm always smelling things that other people can't smell. Like I will smell a bad smell in a shop and I'm just like, I gotta get out of here. And my family have been like, what are you talking about? Like that's not a thing. And it's like, no, I can smell it. Like I can't cope with that. Like I remember going to the zoo when I was a kid, the elephants, right? And actually like crying and being like, I can't go any closer. Like I can't deal with it. Like I went on holiday with my grandma and granddad. We went to York when I was a teenager. And there was some sort of exhibition about like Vikings or something, I'm not sure. And we were queuing in the street, but the smell of the place going in, it had this, I can't even explain the smell. It was like some sort of plasticky smell. It was so much that I couldn't go in, and I just started crying on the street. And it was like really embarrassing because like my grandparents were like, we're queuing for this thing, like why would you not go in? And I just like started crying because I was like, the shame of crying in public was less than the intensity of like the smells and everything. I couldn't cope with it. And I've always been like that. You know, that's just a thing that we kind of laugh at in the family, that like I have a nose like a dog. Like I will smell anything and I just get really uncomfortable with that. But also it's true with like certain textures and stuff. Like I can't eat, I eat a diet that I'm comfortable with and I just cycle it. Like I don't eat new food. I will not eat new food. I have to try new food. It's a big deal if I do. And I get really stressed if things like change. And all that she was saying in the documentary, I'm thinking, that's me. But is it though? Is it just trauma? Is it just trauma? I don't know. Like I can't keep up with paperwork, but then that might be an ADHD thing. Like I really, really struggle with it. Like I find it so overwhelming. Like I think this might be ADHD, honestly. But I can't keep up with stuff. Like I need to be reminded to do things that are like not my particular interest, right? Or the thing that's like ruling my brain at that time. Even sometimes to eat, I need to be reminded to eat sometimes. I don't open letters because I forget them, and then I get overwhelmed with doing things. And I find it really hard to keep up with my friends. Like, I care about my friends, but I find it really hard to answer texts. Like, I find it really overwhelming, and like I don't stay in contact very much. And something someone said on the documentary was that like they want to be involved, but they can't handle it. And I feel the same. Like I couldn't handle that. Like when I was at school, I didn't do normal socialising stuff. Like I couldn't deal with it. Like the school day in itself would make me, I would sleep after school and then I'd get in trouble because, you know, certain homework hadn't been done or something. But it wasn't because I was a bad kid. I wasn't like living the high life. Like I was crying and asleep after school, like completely worn out, just falling to absolute pieces. But then also there's trauma. There was trauma happening at the same time. Was it autism or was it trauma or was it both? you know, because a lot of traumatic stuff happened around those years for me that were just horrific and I wasn't coping with. And it's just hard to know, like, I don't know. I just don't know. Like, I do find it really hard to say no. So, but that's also a trauma thing. Like, I've spoken about this before, but, you know, I am a people pleaser because that's just what you learn. If things aren't always stable or safe to be yourself, you very quickly learn to people please. You think, what does that person want from me? And you become that. Because otherwise it was dangerous or unpleasant. So you basically just become that people pleaser. You become that person that doesn't say no because you can't handle what might happen if you don't. It's just like a security and safety thing that I've always kind of done. I've always been hyper polite and scared of being told off, which in some ways is definitely down to trauma, but also I do find it really hard to say no. Like, I do believe people. Like, sometimes like Dan or my family have to like help me a little bit because I do believe things that people tell me, and I do believe the best in them, and I'm not always the best at spotting someone's lying or something. I mean, as I've got older, I've got better at spotting. I can spot a trauma I can spot abusive dynamics. I'm pretty good at that because of my trauma history. But just in terms of like, I don't know, I can be quite naive. Let's say I can be quite naive, and I've always been young for my age. Like, you know, that's just a thing. I've always looked younger, acted a bit younger. Like, I just have always been younger for my age, you know. And the whole idea of like not having a stable sense of identity, which could be BPD because you struggle finding your sense of self, and it can be because of abuse and trauma, which definitely is a thing for me. Like, it's so impossible to know who you are when you've had to become a certain thing to survive. You just don't ever learn who you are. So I'm trying to do that now, but it's not easy. But also a sense of like, I struggle to... In the documentary, Christine was talking about how she was like going through her wardrobe and these are the things I was meant to be and meant to like, and I'm getting rid of those and I'm actually discovering what I like. And I remember when I was at school, one of my actual favourite teachers, she's amazing, I used to go to school dressed as fictional characters. Genuinely, all my outfits would be inspired by a fictional character or a Pre-Raphaelite painting or something. Like, I just couldn't dress as myself. I didn't know what that was. I still kind of don't, but I'm at peace with that now. Which is why you'll see that when I'm going through like a wander phase, like Scarlet Witch, you'll see me in a lot of red and pink. I wear a lot of clothes that, there's a character in Emmerdale, that I wear a lot of the clothes that she wore, those sort of colours. Like, I go through a Clara Oswald stage, like, I go through the Pre-Raphaelite stage, I go through these kind of phases. But I remember she said once, and in a really nice way, she's lovely, she was like, when are you going to come to school dressed as yourself? And I thought about that and I was like, you're right. Like, I don't know how to do that. Like, I'm just trying to be... I don't know. I didn't really know how to be, and I do feel isolated from people. I do feel different from people. I've always felt different from people my age, but I wonder if that's trauma though. Because you do feel isolated and you don't feel comfortable and you don't do the normal teenage things. Like, I did not have any sort of normal teenage years or childhood up to a point because it just wasn't possible. Like, that kind of stuff just doesn't work. When you're dealing with like trauma and abuse, you just don't do those things. So you never, I don't know, it's like you don't develop like everyone else does in a certain way. You know, it's just really difficult. You know, I guess I'm just wondering, I know that sometimes you can get diagnosed with BPD if you're an autistic woman. Because I did BPD therapy, I did steps, and it's been so helpful in a lot of ways because of the trauma I've been through. That's helped, but it hasn't completely cured things because I'm still not functioning, essentially, like, brilliantly. I find that really hard. Like, I do feel like this kind of slightly distant person that wants to get involved in stuff, but I always think about it like the Lady of Shalott. I'm sorry if that sounds pretentious, but that's how I see myself. Like, I desperately want to be part of things, but that's why I'm a writer, right? That's why I'm a musician. Like, I love people. I love figuring out people, but I'm not good at figuring out how to actually make relationships work, if that makes sense. Like, one of my, like, best friends who I've known for many, many years, I went out with her just the other day. It was her birthday coming up. And she's, like, amazing and very patient with me. You know what? That was wrong. I totally just messed up my eyeliner just then. I'm just going to redo that bit. But she's amazing because she's so understanding of the different needs that I have. Like, incredibly understanding. I'm so lucky to have her. Because, like, when I was younger, we used to do a lot of things together, and her family were just amazing as well, so kind to me. And I have these things about, like, where I sit, like, I need to be near an exit, I get really nervous if I don't know a place. And they're just so good with me. And so I've done a lot of things with her over the years that are just amazing, that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. You know, but I do really struggle with a lot of that kind of stuff, and it's like the eye contact thing, and I don't know, am I just, you know, latching on to something because there is stigma towards those with BPD? And I'm not saying I don't have BPD. I suppose what I'm saying is, could it be possible that if it's not misdiagnosed, could it be both things? Where is the lid? I have lost the lid to my eyeliner and it's driving me crazy. Where are you? I do not know where that lid's gone, but I'm sure it'll turn up. But like, I find it hard with the eye contact thing. Like, that's something I've always done. Like, I've always found it really difficult to make eye contact, and something you might notice in my YouTube videos, I never look right into the camera. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I find that very, very difficult. I always talk at an angle because I find it tough. And I've always wondered what you're supposed to do when you look someone in the eyes. Like, when someone's talking to me, I spend so much time thinking, like, how long do I look in the eyes, then I look away, and where do I look, and that kind of thing. And I've always kind of in the back of my mind been procrastinating on that, because I've kind of been aware maybe that's an autistic thing, but I just didn't really think about it. You know, and also that could be a trauma thing, because I get really, really anxious about, like, tone of voice and stuff. Like, if I feel like if someone shouts or something, I get really nervous and scared, and, like, I just sort of shut down and, like, kind of dissociate and stuff. Like, I get really, really scared if people are angry or displeased with me, which has been difficult because in the world, you know, people aren't always going to like you or agree with you, which obviously now I'm older is fine. When you come from a trauma background, that's really scary because you don't know, I don't know, it's horrible. It's really, really scary. I don't know, it has come up before, on and off, but it's been kind of like procrastinated on. Like, yeah, sure, I believe there is autism in the family. I hope it's okay to say, but, like, I think my great-grandfather was autistic, possibly my granddad is autistic. Maybe other family members might be autistic, I don't know. But it's in the family, but I just don't know. Like, it's all so confusing. You know, what's trauma, what's not trauma, I just don't know. And also I think, I don't know, I'm from a family that doesn't really agree with the whole diagnosis thing, and it's been a real battle to get any sort of diagnosis for any of the issues I've had. I've had to really fight to get the support that I've had. Not because my family don't love me, because they do a lot, and I love them a lot, but because it's a battle to kind of get them to accept that things might be different. Because it's like, I don't know, people feel better, don't they, to think not in this family, etc. But I guess I'm asking, say I was autistic, would there be any benefit in me even getting a diagnosis or anything? Or is that not necessary? Or are there any, like, tips? Or, you know, you might be sitting here thinking that does not even sound like autism anyway, which, you know, just tell me if that's not the case. Like, I don't know. But yeah, my dad has wondered before if I'm autistic. So you know, Dan has also said before that maybe I could have, and these are both kind of unprompted things, so I don't know. But yeah, there's a lot to think about, and I also don't want to be like, oh, I've just seen a thing and now I think I have it, but it's just a lot of it really resonated with me, and it's something I don't really talk about that much, you know. But I do have a lot of kind of struggles and stuff, like, you know, I've never been in a relationship, because 2 reasons. One is a trauma reason. I have just struggles with relationships and trust and like feeling safe and stuff like that. But also I just don't know, sometimes I don't know where to begin, and I just don't know what to talk about, and I just feel like an alien, I guess. I don't know. But I don't think it's a bad thing. Like, it's not a bad thing, but I don't know. I don't know where this video is even going, but I think my makeup's done now, so I'm ready. Did not sleep last night at all. But yeah, just, I don't know. I might make a video about it. This might be complete nonsense, but people on the channel have said to me before, they've said, do you think maybe you might have it? And it's like, I've always kind of said, I wouldn't rule it out, maybe. But I guess, I don't know, watching Christine's documentary and the other women on the documentary, I was like, yeah, I get that. Oh my gosh. You know, I do that thing where I rehearse conversations. You know, I always like prepare what I might say in such and such a situation and what I might do in this situation, and I practice. Is that weird? Like, I do practice. Like, I have practiced facial expressions. That's such a weird thing to say, and I feel really vulnerable even saying that, but I do. I don't know. Anyway, thank you for watching this. I'm gonna go because my grandma and granddad are gonna be here in like 5 minutes, so I better get my bag together. But yeah, tell me what you think. I love you loads, and I will see you really soon. Sorry for this. Alright, love you. Bye.